Welcome to Evolving on Purpose with Matt Swartz. This podcast is where real leaders share the inner work behind their breakthroughs and where you'll find the tools and stories to work through whatever is holding you back from who you're meant to be so you can make the impact you're here to make and help change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Evolving on Purpose. We're here back with Sarah Rollins for her coaching episode. Sarah Rollins is the founder of Embodied Wellness, PLLC, a group therapy practice based in Metro Detroit and online throughout Michigan, specializing in somatic therapy. The practice specializes in somatic therapy and EMDR to treat trauma, anxiety, and depression. Sarah earned her Master of Social Work degree from the University of Michigan and has advanced training in somatic experiencing, EMDR, attachment, and internal family systems. She has been featured in podcasts, news articles, and blogs as an expert in somatic therapy, where she shares her knowledge on the connection between the body, complex trauma, and emotional healing. Sarah, we're thrilled to have you back.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here again.
Thanks so much. So as I shared, the goal of these episodes, and as some of my audience already knows, is to make sure this work, this personal growth work, feels accessible, that it's not some weird, dark, stormy thing. And even in our world of somatics, right, obviously people are like, and it's like, no, come on, I'll show you. It's not so bad. So I appreciate your openness and willingness to, do some of this work out loud.
Yeah, it's great. I'm excited to dive in again.
Cool.
With you.
So before we started, you were telling me the thing you wanted to focus on was, something I think lots of leaders deal with in different ways, which is trying to balance the reality of the structures and the policies and the regulation, especially in our industry and the therapy industry. But this is not industry specific. The reality is this exists in lots of different industries, with the adaptability and the humanness and, wanting to create a meaningful culture. So, that's my summary, but, you summarized it really well. Tell me more about what that struggle looks like from a bird's eye view, and then we'll dig in a little more specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So from a bird's eye view, now that I'm more I'm in a leadership role, I can see things a little bit more specifically. But I remember when I wasn't in leadership and I was working for bigger organizations or even smaller organizations, I would always be like, why are they doing this? Like, why are they so strict on this? Or what's the big deal? Like, why can't I just get a raise? I've done a good job. And, and I kind of honestly put judgment or really didn't understand why certain things had to be the way they were. And now that I'm in it, I'm like, oh, I get it. It's not so unifaceted, or it's not as easy as just saying this person's doing a good job and they deserve a raise. There's so much more behind the scenes that leaders are considering that we can't put on employees. That's not our job. Part of the reason that people want to be employees is that they don't have to deal with all this stuff, right? And so that's something I've struggled with is what should I tell the therapists or the staff that work with me so they kind of get a little glimpse into why I'm making decisions without burdening them. So, and that kind of goes to this bigger sense of I ultimately want both myself and the people I work with to feel like they have autonomy, that their successes are being acknowledged, that they can grow, that if they have a dream or a goal, like I want to start this group or I want to work with this population, they're nourished in that. And that also we all have stressful moments or things that we're working on, and for those to not be demonized against them. And so creating this culture of support and accountability and flexibility within this broader sense of, well, there's laws and rules and that I have no control over as a leader. And so sometimes I feel like I'm ping-ponging between these two things, and it can really strain on me.
Totally. Yeah. tell me more about strain on you. Like, how do you personally experience that?
Yeah, I tend to take things out on myself. So there's narratives of I'm not doing a good job, or what could I do better, or what's wrong with me, or it usually kind of goes back to I'm doing something wrong, even if ultimately it's usually not that black and white, where it's like this is my journey right now. Part of my journey is taking accountability for what's mine, and also allowing other people to take accountability for what's theirs.
Totally. So and this is obviously you saying that out loud, like that's not a surprise to you. This is something you're already aware of and you've already worked on, right? And nonetheless, we get there pretty quickly. And so that means that that's obviously an important part of this. And again, in the effort, I think, of connecting all leaders who struggle with this, tell me about the journey. And we're going to work backwards. I promise we'll get to the structural stuff. But like, tell me about the journey for you of working on some of those, self beating yourself up, negative self-talk kind of pieces, recently throughout the journey you've been on to grow as well.
Yeah. I mean, this started when I was a kid, before I was even working, in school. And I think just as most people who have this, a lot of people are like, no, it's not your fault, or, and trying to validate me. And on the one hand, I appreciate that. I love that I have supportive family and friends who are like, Sarah, come on. Like, no, you're not perfect. And also, there's no way this is all on you. Yeah. But it never felt aligned. Like when I was younger, I was like, you're just lying to me, or you have to say that because you're my mom. Or there's this movie, or I think it's also a book called He's Just Not That Into You, which goes into dating, right? Of like, typically our friends say to us like, well, no, I'm sure that he was busy if he didn't call you back. Sure. I'm sure his mom's grandma's friend died. And so he's like really upset, but he does really like you. And when I saw this movie of He's Just Not That Into You, it landed with me. Because sometimes it's like, maybe we don't need to sugarcoat it. Maybe the truth is like, he's just not that into you. Move on. Or like, yeah, you got to work on your communication, or you got to X. And I can still support you in that. But I think that even though that was obviously within the dating realm, it helped me feel like, what is on me and what is on other people? And just over time, noticing my patterns to kind of shut down and feel a lot of shame if I perceived anything go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is so good. And I totally get what you mean, because I face this challenge, whether it's shame or a lot of anxiety for my clients, where it's like, like when I was a baby therapist, I would go like, oh, it's fine. Everything will turn out okay. And now I'm like, I would never say that to a client. Like that is just so, no, you're right. It could, absolutely. Things could turn out poorly. Yeah. How do we navigate that? Right? Instead of, no, everything, right? No, he loves you, he'll text you back. Don't, like, you're just delaying the pain, right? Which is classic, not going to work. Right.
And when we know and we've had experiences that not everything's been okay. Like the prime example was years ago, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And it was one of those cancers that I don't remember the exact rates, but it's pancreatic cancer. And most people know that there's very low success rate being alive. I think after 1 year is like 5%, something like that. Those aren't probably the real stats. And some people were like, oh, Sarah, like, I'm sure chemo is going to work. And I was like, but it won't. And it felt so misaligned. Like, I just actually need you to sit with my pain and know like it won't end well, but I can still be okay. Yeah. So I think that also really helped kind of solidify of like, wait, we don't have to like sugarcoat or make everything okay, because usually it's me on the other end being like, I'm uncomfortable with their potential pain.
Yeah. No. And so like, I think what I have found is that certain leaders just have particular patterns, right? Because they were kids and they grew up and, and there are leaders that are on the exact opposite of this spectrum, that they experience very little to no shame. And, we see that in certain places and certain big companies and, whatever, right? And then there are leaders on the other side of that continuum. And of course, everywhere in between, right? And you're not over here, right? Because you wouldn't, you wouldn't be in charge of anything. But somewhere on that continuum is, how much shame am I experiencing? How much do I personalize these things? How much do I blame myself when this occurs? And I'm not very excited about just wake up every morning and look up in the mirror and tell yourself how beautiful you are and blah, blah. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And it's not that simple. It is, and you already know this. I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know.
Yeah.
But it's how do we get better at processing shame, right? Because the reality is the more I'm deciding to carry as a leader, the bigger the shame is going to be. So I can either stop, slow down, say, okay, don't want to grow anymore. I need to figure out this shame and then I'll move to the next step, or close it down and go, hey, nope, you know what? I don't want to, I don't want to deal with shame ever. Well, it's okay. So, good luck, but not this much, you know what I mean? Or we say, okay, I recognize that for me, as a leader, this is going to be part of the journey. And each time I take on a greater responsibility and each time I expand, I am going to have to work through a new version of this shame. This isn't me being broken. This isn't, this is just my particular flavor of human. Mm-hmm. And, so the question then is, what are the skills that have worked up until now for processing through that guilt and shame? And are there other skills or tools that I need to build in order to navigate these bigger chunks that are emerging? Does that make sense? Feel fair?
Completely.
So what's worked for you? Because I think there are probably some things that have already worked, that it's about growing, right? And then maybe there's another one or two things to add on, but you probably have a sense of what works for you when navigating shame.
Yeah, one of the things that I've always done, I'm a very external processor, which is probably why I'm a therapist. But so I've always been in therapy. I've always talked to my friends, and I have a lot of friends, but a core group of friends where they're going to validate me, but they're not going to sugarcoat it. And so that's really nice for me.
Yeah.
They also know me really well, so they're not going to just give me kind of cookie cutter answers.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so I just feel really fortunate that I've had that. More and more talking to other business owners has really helped. One thing that I started to do, and I think for me, one of my patterns is I'll go from all to nothing and then find my way into the middle.
Okay.
And so one thing that I notice is that maybe someone who works with me will come to me and say, hey, this happened, I didn't like that. And so then I'll tend to way overcorrect. Right? And it could be a small thing, it could be a big thing. And then I do it really urgently because there's that shame in me, that desire to be okay, I'm going to fix it right now, because there was been so many times when I worked for somebody and I was hey, this is something that I'm struggling with. And they'd be we'll get to it. And then 5 years later, it was never gotten to.
Sure.
And so that feels really meaningful to me to not do that. But then I overcorrect. I'm okay, we'll fix it. But then when fixing that, other things kind of tumble.
Sure.
Because everything's connected. So I'm on finding my middle path, as they say in the DBT world, of, okay, someone gives me feedback. I acknowledge it. I usually agree with it. How do we, and this has been a big thing for me, is moving from I to we. How do we take responsibility? We move to more of a middle ground, but not in an urgent or forced way,
Totally.
But still acknowledging and not just putting it on the to-do list and never getting to it.
Totally. Yeah. So, I think there's a couple really important and interesting things there. The first is, the pattern that you're identifying in my framework is what I call the fix, problem, which is, we have these 6 core reactions to trauma, and one of them is to fix, right? So problem, fix it, which, any of these patterns are useful in the world, right? Fight, flight, freeze, fawn, flex, fix. They're all useful. So it's not to say stop doing that completely, but it's like, oh, this is my pattern on overdrive, right? I go into this defense mechanism, this part of me, right? I have a fixed part, right? I'm not all one thing. I go into this part of me to get away from the feeling that I don't want to feel, right? And just again, you already know this, but the most important thing you can do is take the time to process the feeling first.
Yeah.
Right. Rather than coming up with a solution. Do you, and I like, if I only walked around the world with one message for leaders, it was like, work with your feelings. And I'm always trying to find the right way to package that so that it doesn't sound like super lame. But, okay, I had this, I'm just trying to make this super tangible, right? I had this conversation with my employee. My employee is telling me that something is bothering them, right? And what do you, Sarah, need to do? And again, you already listed, like, I could talk to a friend, or I can, and is there a somatic practice you can use? And obviously, you want 2 or 3 things depending on the moment, but like, have you really locked in the idea that the first thing you need to do is process the feeling before you find a solution?
No. I think my first inkling is to validate that other person.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the good news is you know how to validate, right? And then
sometimes I'm not perfect, but
no, but then and then for you, right? Like it's, you just, absolutely. Don't skip the step where you go, because I get what you're saying. Like, there are people that have ignored things. There are people that have affirmed me and then never gotten back. And so I'm trying to be a better leader. And that's exactly what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to say, hey, these things have hurt me. I processed through that. I'm approaching this as a leader. And it's just like, we can look at all kinds of simple, all kinds of crazy solutions here. But at the end of the day, one of the things that was most meaningful to me, because I went through the same thing, and I was at one point 16 different therapists, right? And it's like, oh, I'm jumping here and I'm scooching there and I'm pivoting here and I'm do-si-doing there. Oh, hey, slow down. Like, and for me, I got angry. Like, I just kept getting more frustrated and more irritable and more frustrated and more irritable. And I didn't take that out of my employees. The people I was managing, I took that out on my wife and my kid and, the dog and, all of that. And we all have these different patterns. You're more taking it out on yourself. But, that's when I found EMDR. And the answer was, we're not processing this. Right. And it gets annoying, and I get it's, but like, each of those interactions deserves 5 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. Usually it's not forever of just sitting down with the emotion that's coming up, because it's about that individual problem, but it's not. It's about, my vision of this place that I want to build and the fear that it's not possible and the great things I've done and the feelings that I'm not doing enough. And it's all bundled together in there.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I notice for me, I tend to take it out on like, really harsh rules. Like, I'm like, okay, because I overcorrect. So I'm like, okay, now if you don't get your notes, you get a warning. Like, and then it's like, whoa, that is like so abrasive, right? Like, that is not trauma informed. But the emotion underneath it is, like you said, frustration. I'm annoyed. I feel out of control. So that's like, okay, fine. Then I'm just going to be strict. And then I'm like, oh gosh, that was, and I think that goes to the bigger thing, this bigger ping ponging of a lot of the things that I get frustrated about are my having to balance autonomy for therapists or staff, understanding that everybody has their own lives and mental health and physical health and all this stuff. And also, like, if insurance audits us, they're not going to be like, well, I know that therapist was couldn't get their meds that week or had a family emergency. So I'm going to give you guys a pass because your notes weren't compliant.
Yeah.
And so that's the type of stuff where I tend to kind of overcompensate and go to more of like the strictness. And it's really based on my fear of like, I, as a leader in the mental health space where I have a lot of, especially with the extra layer of insurance panels, not just the government, like there's a lot of, what's the word? Not reliability. I mean, that is the right word, but, words.
Like dependence?
No, risk.
Yeah.
Right? Like let's say worst case scenario, we're audited and people aren't doing their notes correctly, for example, we could get a clawback of thousands to thousands of dollars. And I'm not taking that back from the therapist. That could be 5 years later. The therapist is long gone.
Yeah.
So then, we're paying $4, $5, $6, $8,000 for somebody else's mistake. But us as the company is liable for that. So that's kind of where sometimes I just feel really stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me more about the stuck feeling. Is that a familiar feeling, or is that something you've only really encountered since becoming an owner?
Oh no, it's very familiar. It's really powerlessness. That's really what I feel. I feel powerless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about your relationship with powerlessness.
Oh, well, now. Right? Just noticing a part coming up, right? I mean, when I typically feel powerless, I have kind of two go-to responses. One is the fix it, like, okay, what can I do? And I get Brene Brown says this, help is the sunny side of control. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so it's like, how can I control the situation?
Yes,
right?
In a helpful way, in a positive way that everybody likes and agrees.
Exactly. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
For sure.
Or I just go into like complete shutdown of like, I'm just going to lay in bed, watch trash TV, cuddle with my cats, which again is not bad, but it's more of a avoidance.
Yeah, it's a freeze response, right? We're just
Right.
Although maybe the way you're describing it, it's more the flight response, right? It's I'm out of here. I'm going to go find my little cave, and you're not like. I have to be careful because people shut down means different things to different people, right? And you and I see like real shutdown, like real freeze. Like I can't give you an answer either way. That's like real freeze. And what you're describing is the more like I'm gonna go find a little cave somewhere and curl up with my cat and watch some whatever trash TV.
Right, because it is avoidance, right? That's why I know that it's more flight that can land in shutdown, right? Like. I flight and then I can shut down. And I will say when I was younger, it was kind of more of a mix of true shutdown and flight. And now it's more flight.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And, this is aside, but like in my model, we look at fix as sort of a combination between fight and flight. It's like I'm going, but then I'm right? And I'm going, and then I'm like I'm trying to control it, but then if that doesn't work, I'm out of here. Because and really like I don't want to be with this problem, right? Like I don't. So I'm going to fix it versus like, what if I just sat in this? And like you said, I think the core and, it's awesome that you have the awareness. And that's why I love talking to like leaders that have spent this emotional intelligence time, right? Is you can see that fear of powerlessness. Mm-hmm. And I think if we're honest, any leader can identify that that's maybe even one of the main motivating factors that causes them to, try to be big and control in any of this. I'm going to ask you a question I think is important, and I want our listeners to ask this question of themselves. Has there ever been a time for you where embracing powerlessness actually led to something bigger and better?
Embracing powerlessness has led to something bigger and better. It resonates.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good question to like simmer rather than just,
Yeah, I'll make it. I think in an effort to be helpful, not to monopolize the space, I'll give you an example because I think that's helpful for me when somebody's like, for me, when I'm just trying to find a relatable example, like when I decided like, oh, I'm not a good manager, like, and maybe I don't want to be a good manager, and maybe I don't have to keep moving in this direction, right? Like, what do I feel in this environment? And but by the way, I'm not saying this is your solution to the problem. I'm just giving this as a, like a sort of general feeling, ultimately taking a step back. I mean, the day I went into my former boss's office and said, I don't want this position anymore. Like, we need to find somebody new. And it took a year and some change to find the new person. But what it opened me up, just again, I'm trying to be tangible for our audience, right? I let go of that management, but I took on more essentially instructional design and like training development and stuff that was like, oh my God, I love this so much. Like, I can be creative here versus like, I don't even know how to meet my own needs. How am I going to meet 16 freaking people, right? So, and again, not saying this is your solution at all. I'm just saying like that for me was a moment where I was like, yeah, like it's okay to not, to be powerless here.
Yeah. Yeah, that brings up a situation where I was working in a previous job, and it was a very large system. And I remember we would have team meetings once a week, and I would be so frustrated before, during, and after. Like, I'd anticipate it. One time I actually walked out of the meeting. I was so upset. And just like my whole day felt bad after that. And I was sitting talking to a colleague about it, just like how I'm having a really hard time with it. And she said something to me. She said, who you are is someone who advocates. That's just like who you are. And so the organization that we're at, for better, for worse, moves at glacial speeds. And I'm worried for you that if you keep doing this, if you keep advocating and getting hyped up and things don't ultimately change, you're just going to keep essentially banging your head against a wall. Yeah. And so I'd really encourage you to make a decision. Like, if you want to stay here, you got to change your attitude. And she didn't say exactly like this, right? But, or if this feels like, you know what, I need to continue to advocate, there might be a better place for you. Yeah. And I remember she said it so kindly. It wasn't like, there wasn't shame associated. There wasn't judgment. It was just kind of naming the truth for me that like, you're sitting here, kind of what they say, insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And I shortly after made a decision to not work there anymore. Yeah. And that's actually, I don't remember the exact pathway, but that was my last job before doing private and group practice.
And so, right, and this is always like, this is so hard for leaders who can create and can make change. The reality of powerlessness and its essential role, in my opinion, of like, I'm navigating around this world and there are millions of options. There are infinite options. And if here I am trying to bang my head against an invisible wall and it's telling me, just go left, dude. Like, this doesn't have to, like, but the challenge, the exercise is embracing that feeling of powerlessness that by the time most of us get there, we've saved up and stored up from all of these other situations. So it requires us, the older you get, the more it compounds, requires maybe a really yucky kind of process that takes place over periods of time. But I just see this so often because I can ask most people this question. They're like, yes, there has been a moment where I just totally released things and something totally new sprung up that I couldn't have, right? That nothing I came up with was ever going to be smart enough and good enough. You
Right.
would have, imagine you would have stayed, you'd have kept, staying in organizations and advocating and trying to create systemic change, and blah, 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 and like, pitch that out 5 years. Like,
Yeah.
This person could see that, what that pathway looked like for you that you couldn't see yourself. And probably good thing that we're not in that direction.
Yeah.
But here we are again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because life is an upward spiral and we're back
Isn't
here
it?
on the left side, right? So it's the same thing, just in a different jacket, right?
Mhm.
And so, my invitation, my challenge would be like, yeah, what would it look like to embrace some powerlessness inside this situation?
Yeah.
But in a healthy way, right? I'm not saying, cut it all up, but like, what would that look like for you here?
Yeah, I noticed myself kind of soften. Like the narrative, the meaning making that just came of like, oh, maybe I don't have to know everything or do everything on my own.
Yeah. Tell me about
Which is
that.
like essentially freeing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you sit with that even for a second, what creative things come up in that space for you, right? If you don't have to do it yourself,
Mm-hmm.
what else is there?
Possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like a lack of rigidity. And like in that is like movement and not feeling so restricted. Yeah. Yeah.
There's just so many options
Mhm.
to any of these things. And again, and
Right.
we can dive back into like these tangibles,
Mhm.
but we want to apply that space, right?
Yeah.
Because like no idea that I come up with or another coach comes up with or your friends come up with are ever going to be as good as what you have to create, because this is
Mhm.
your creation. You're on the inside of this, right? There
Yeah.
may be a cool tip here or there
Oh,
that,
of course.
but being in that, like, yeah, that more generative open space, can you look at like the fear of insurance clawbacks? Like pick anything, but
Mhm.
we'll pick that because you use that, right?
Yeah.
Can you approach that from a place where you can embrace some level of powerlessness?
Mm-hmm.
And if you do, what alternatives come up for you
Mm.
in that space?
It's interesting. So I'm applying this to that, and I have multiple kind of parts coming up. One
Yeah.
is like, we'll figure it out. And another part is like this could totally tank us.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, it's kind of like navigating.
Yeah, those parts, right?
Yeah.
Totally normal, right? There is this
Yeah.
part of me that is really scared, like that this could all, again, I see this all the time in leaders, like this will all crumble, right? Like
Mhm.
everything I built, the wrong clawback. Well, where am I going to get $100,000
Right.
and, whatever. And I'm not trying to make light of it in any sense. But what I've seen time and time again is I've seen leaders of every size work through these challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can tell you about clients who own, 8-figure, 9-figure businesses who they've been sued for things that you and I could only like we'd be like, oh my God, that would ruin me. And I've watched them. And again, like my job isn't to be able to do everything they can do. My job is to support them in growing in the spaces that they're growing in. So for some of them, it's like, yeah, how do we condition our nervous system to manage this lawsuit? Right. That again is like probably for more than your or my business is worth. Right. Like,
Completely.
and they do. And then, I can think of one client in particular who, and then he got a couple of years ago, he got sued again for something so similar and it was bigger. And he was like, man, I got this. Like, we're going to be, and it was just, it was like incredible. Right. But that's the trauma work, right? The trauma work is I can feel these things and I can move into these things. Because Sarah, if you're going to keep growing a practice, if you're going to grow even bigger things, who knows, right? Like you're I think you're pretty young. You've got, what's going to happen, right? Like, it's how do we find safety? Not in how can I prevent this from happening?
Yeah.
But how do I embrace, which I do believe is the resolution to this sort of what I would call like shame anxiety that I see for a lot of people.
Completely.
Is, it's capability. It's not prevention. It's not control. And it's not, nothing bad will never happen to you, sweet. No, it's going to be like.
Shit happens.
Shit does happen nonstop, right?
Right.
So does this make sense where I'm going with this?
Yeah, I think what you're trying to say is if I spend all of my energy trying to prevent something versus, wait, bad things can happen. It may or may not. And can we focus on my capacity to persevere through and be resilient?
Yeah.
If I have more faith in that, something that part of this journey of like moving through shame is a couple of my friends and I would cheat a lot in school growing up. I know. Can you believe it? And part of it was like, how dare I not get an A? Right? Like, how dare I not be perfect? And so we even made jokes like cheating triangle, like all these funny things. And I remember a couple times I would call it checking my answers. I'm not cheating. I'm just verifying. I'm just checking my answers, right? So I remember a couple times I would have an answer, be like, I'm not sure. Look over. Someone else had a different answer. And I trusted them more than I trusted myself. So I erased that answer, put in theirs, and I would get it wrong. They would mark it wrong. And what the right answer was originally what I had. Not every time, but there more and more that happened to me. And I started to then think like, why do I trust this other person more than I trust myself? Because now I had evidence, right? When they always had the right answer, they meaning whoever was next to me, it didn't, my theory was right. Everybody else is smarter than me. Yeah. But when I started to change it and be like, oh, wait, that was kind of that natural consequences that we talked to that I started to question and be like, wait, maybe I do know more than I give myself credit for. Because it's not like I wasn't studying. It's not like I don't pay attention in class, right? I did all that stuff, but ultimately didn't believe in my own capacity.
100%.
Yeah.
So what if this is exactly the same thing, right? The test is, how do I not, how do you deal with an insurance clawback, right? And their answer is, well, you make sure everybody gets the note in 24 hours. And, and you're like, I always describe it like grafting a branch onto a tree. It's like, that's not mine.
I don't know anything about that. So
it's like, you're trying to get a branch to grow on a different tree than its native, right? Like versus just like, no, the tree is like growing already. Like it's got branches. It knows where the branches are going, right? And we, again, part of this is like our culture of like, there's some sort of like 100% applicable objective reality that if you just follow these steps, like, no, every practice is different. Every, treatment methodology and the clients you attract and the people you attract are all different. So if you're cheating off of somebody else's paper, which is different than, absorbing techniques and learning and, right? Of course, right? Yeah. But like, this person says that this is how you, prevent an insurance clawback versus like, hang on, let me sit with this, right? Let me, and it really is, I think, just a larger version of that. It's like, in that moment, right, is you're taking the test or whatever, there's a feeling, that feeling of, perfectionism, trying to prevent, like whatever you want to call it. It's a physical feeling. You can feel it in your body. And now you're just experiencing a bigger version of that. Right. And when you started, I 100% guarantee you that is not what you were feeling when things started to grow. I already know because you told me last time. You were like, what? Like just kind of like rolling. Like that is fluid creation. And when this is, for me, the point of the somatic work is to get into our body and feel that. I use the term flow state, right? Feel that flow more and more and less of the constriction tightening, and that's the powerlessness is causing me to go like this, or the perfectionism or whatever, the shame. And just how do we find our way back to that feeling of generativity and creativity and ease? And this is the teacher checking your answers portion. I have worked with business owners that have, again, businesses way larger than ours, the 9 figures, right?
Yeah.
The answer isn't prevent the lawsuit. The answer is create a new service or a new product or a new, vertical or whatever that's going to make me 3, 4, 5 times what I was making before. And instead of defending myself against these potential problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the kind of what we talked about last time too, of the scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, where am I putting my energy?
Where are you putting your energy? Right. And I would ask a very tangible, direct question. What are there creative projects? Are there things that have come up that you have felt inspired about that you have put to the side because you're feeling consumed managing these things or not necessarily?
Not in this moment, but I think it's more of the cultural aspect of the organization.
Yeah.
That has been, I don't want to say put aside. You can never put aside culture, but has maybe shifted in ways that aren't ideal to me, aren't ideal to some other people. And I don't mean it as globally not ideal, but looking at it as wait, I want the culture to be an objective item rather than just that happens or that doesn't happen. Who cares about that? Yeah. That's not, I do care about it. So I want that to be a concrete thing.
Yeah, for sure. So again, for the audience, because, culture, right? What is one tangible thing that comes to mind for you in how you want to put your energy towards building the culture?
One tangible thing is how people feel, or having people feel psychologically safe enough to express themselves.
Yeah, totally. Do you feel how well do you feel that's happening currently?
I would say we're on our way up.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are there specific practices that you have either currently utilized or you want to utilize to build that ability to feel safe sharing?
One thing we've recently started to do was not focusing in our team meetings only about work, because if everything is about clinical, of course, that's important to talk about, but then it doesn't feel safe to share, wait, X happened to me over the weekend, or these fun things that oh, my kid went swimming for the first time, or my cats and dogs are finally cohabitating. Those are important too. So we've shifted to talking about personal stuff in meetings, of course, what people feel comfortable sharing. And I also, there's this phrase I've heard of the fish rots at the head. I don't know if you've ever heard that. No. The purpose of that phrase is to say, okay, if the head of an organization or the head of the fish is that's leadership. And so if I'm not, as a leader, showing myself and creating a psychologically safe enough environment, of course the fish is going to rot.
Yeah.
Of course the culture's and that's what I can take accountability for, of where am I showing up? How am I showing up? Yeah. What explicit and implicit norms am I creating?
Totally.
Right? Instead of I don't know why everybody doesn't feel safe enough to talk.
Right. Hey, what can I, come on, why aren't you sharing? Right. Yeah. So I think a couple of really good things here as we sort of like I'm going to try to button some of this up, right? Like on a leadership level, a couple of key things you're saying. Number one, building culture means building relationships, right? And that's an active process. And where is that on our strategic plan? Where is that on our daily agenda, right? Like, oh, get the notes done. Cool. Also, and there's, I can't point to the exact study, but I know I've seen studies done on this that show that, like, not necessarily as therapists, right? But when you look at psychological safety in the workplace, that productivity increases the more the relationships feel strong. And so there you are trying to like pressure people into getting the notes done. And actually it creates more fear and more shame. And then they're less likely to get the notes done, right? Versus building those relationships. And not to say it's perfect, but it's way better long-term, right? Not short-term. Short-term scare people, I guess. Long-term, right? We build these relationships. So number one, as leaders, what active process of doing that? Like you said, it's got to be on the agenda. It's got to be in the team meeting. It's got to be, right? We do that individually. We do that as group. And if we are setting aside team building because we're too concerned about the outputs, we're going to suffer. And once again, you're doing it all yourself instead of we, right? Correct. All together. And then I think the other thing you said, for me, fish rots at the head would be like, oh, my psychological safety is the cap of this organization. And so if I want my clinicians to feel okay feeling powerless once in a while, I've got to figure that out. If I want to help them navigate their shame for not getting their note done on time, I have to figure that out, right? Like this is, as I continue to do the personal work, myself expands from a me to a we as a leader, right? It becomes this multicellular organism that I am the nucleus of, but I don't have control over this thing. It's, organized around me. Yeah. And so, psychological safety is like, it's a lot of work, right? But it's really important work because the greater that we can feel that safety, again, if it's a lawsuit, if it's a clawback, if it's a, thing not coming in on time, the more I can feel safe with these things, the greater my ability to help everybody else feel safe. And then these things obviously co-interact, right? Relationships build psychological safety. Psychological safety opens the door for these relationships. So I think you've really identified the key areas that, you're probably already working on, but hopefully you've like deepened your like, oh yeah, like I can see how this all connects together and why this is important.
Yeah. And how fear really inhibits that.
Yeah. The classic, right, is we're either in fear or we're in creation. Yeah. And every time if we can do the processing, move us back out, it's like, I just like, again, for what it's worth, I live my life by that. Like, okay, I can sit here and worry about the clawback or, right, how do I build over here? That's like, so like for me, I mean, just, part of the reason this podcast arose, right, is our landscape has changed a lot as therapists and practitioners. We have these online VC companies and all of, this fun stuff, the insurance thing. And, they have the Blue Cross thing just now, and you have the Aetna thing, and you have all of these things happening. It's like, oh yeah, like I have all of this creative energy. And instead of sitting here trying to manage the winds that are flowing through the trees, right? I can't manage the winds, right? Yeah. But I can go. And I can find the things that feel naturally, intrinsically meaningful to me. And I just really encourage leaders to go back to like those situations, like you said, this transition between where you were and how you started your practice and what you shared last time. And it's like, yeah, man, it's just incredible how those things will happen for us when we get out of our own way and when we get out of that fear.
Completely. Yeah.
Well, cool. Sarah, thank you so much for your openness and exploring this. I hope this felt meaningful to you. I know that this is a meaningful conversation for my audience because these are I can't tell you how many I've had this similar conversation with. So I really appreciate you being open with us.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And I know I need these conversations for me. I hear other people. And that's why I think community, when we go back to relationships, community is really important, and vulnerability. Like, so I can't grow without other people. I'm part of their growing experience. It's cool to have that be.
We're all doing it together. Yeah. Soft plug for the Campfire, which is my weekly free community. It's every Tuesday at 1 p.m. starting on, this will be premiered by the after, so it's every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Lots of cool leaders coming together doing this personal growth work together. We'd love to have you there. If there's something you'd like to share with us, I'm having all the podcast guests come if they can to the Campfire. And if there's something, a little 5 to 10 minute teaching nugget that you'd like to bring, we'd love to have you. Anything you wanted to plug, Sarah, that we can be aware of, how to get in contact with you and how to make sure we're connected into your community?
Yeah, so we're open. We have a space in Farmington Hills. We see people all virtually also. If you are interested in any of our resources or scheduling a free consultation, embodiedwellnesstherapy.com. Or you can call us. Our number's on our website. It's just easier. Cool. But yeah, I love hearing from other business owners, or, if anybody has questions, you can put my contact information in the show notes. Yes,
we will. Any social media handles that you want?
It's all Embodied Wellness Therapy.
Cool. Great. Yeah. We hope they check you out. Thank you so much for being here, Sarah. And we'll hope you stay connected and we see you soon.
Definitely. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome. All right, team. So if this episode resonated with you, this is exactly why we built this. The work you're doing matters, and it's not meant to be done alone. So make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you're listening. Share this with a leader in your life who's ready for something deeper, especially if this resonated with you. Follow along on Instagram between episodes for more tools, reflections, and real conversations, and let us know what you want to explore next to help you on your journey. This is bigger than a podcast. This is a movement. It's a community of authentic leaders that are choosing to grow, heal, and step into who they were meant to be so we can make the impact the world actually needs. Thanks for being here. And as always, let's keep evolving on purpose together.